funniest Ike stories I've seen, and I've repeated this several times, but he's being interviewed, and someone goes, I understand, Ike, that you fired Jimi Hendrix. He goes, well, yeah, I fired him. He was always messing with those pedals. He had the wah pedal, he had the buzz pedal, he had this pedal. He spent more time with those pedals. He spent playing the guitar, so I fired him. And that's exactly how he said it too. And he goes, and then later when I heard about Jimi Hendrix, the rock god, I didn't know it was the same Jimi Hendrix.
Well, it's interesting. Both, Ike Turner and Little Richard and others had Jimmy playing for him, and every single time it's interesting. Think of those two egos.
Yeah.
He scared the freaking hell out of him, Royce.
Right. Well,
remember Pete Townsend, when he heard him, he went to Eric Clapton and said, our career's over.
Right. Right.
He scared the hell out of everybody.
I heard so many stories like that. I remember also the first time I heard this story. Maybe it's related to the story you've also said, and I've heard that before too. But Hendrix was backstage trying to light a cigarette, and his hands were shaking. And he looked at the guy that brought him to the concert and goes, "You didn't tell me it was that fucking good."
Yes, absolutely, yes.
I heard another story that they were both on stage together. I'm not sure whose show it was. Maybe it was Clapton, and they decided to, take turns doing some soloing, and Hendrix went first. And I understand Clapton walked off the stage. He didn't even do his solo.
Well, the sound was something nobody had heard.
I'm not
the approach.
Clapton. I think Clapton's a fantastic guitar player.
I rank him higher than Jimi Hendrix, actually. But Jimmy's but a notch below him, like one notch. I think he's a genius guitar player, Clapton, and I think same thing. They're in my top 5 guitar players of all time, and anybody on that level, as far as I'm concerned, once I've ranked them in my head, right? These are rock gods, people. They belong on Mount Rock Olympus, and there's but a shade of difference between these top 5 really guitar players.
Break down to personal preference.
I
became a huge fan of Jimi Hendrix. I think I have 16 of his albums. Became a huge fan of his from the moment I first heard him. Okay, and for the longest time, I always stated that he was my favorite guitar player, with Jimmy Page really close, neck and neck.
Right.
There's something about Hendrix's playing that just, I can't tell you how many, Hendrix CDs, 8 tracks, final I've worn out over the years. I think I still have my original Are You Experienced. I don't think it plays very well though,
Right.
Well, if you ever want to get into like some hellish debates with people, just start going on to favorite guitarists. And,
right.
Yeah.
Well.
You should have seen the comments on my channel. When I did that, I got thousands of comments, and that's the whole thing of my channel is I start the conversation and I let the tribe deal with it, right? Yeah. But Royce, I've got to hand it to you, brother, because I've always traditionally had the 3 Yardbird guitars when I was younger as my number 1, number 2, number 3, right? With Jimmy Page, Jimmy Page, Jeff Beck, Eric Clapton, then Hendrix. Okay. All right. And I've switched out a little bit. Think about my mindset back then. Your mindset back then was more correct, because I've also stated many times the reason I love Jimi Hendrix and Jimmy Page, the double Jimmies, man, is they purposefully live worked themselves into a corner just to challenge to see if they could work themselves out of that freaking corner.
Right.
All right. Now, live, those are the 2 best guitarists on the planet. I'm sorry. It is so evident in their solos. So your mindset, it took me over 60 years to finally kind of figure that out, you know, the nuances and everything. So kudos to you, man.
No, thank you.
Know,